Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by my buddy. Wherever he goes, I go too. Now let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by the SS Minnow. Enjoy a relaxing cruise touring the South Pacific chartered on the SS Minnow. Welcome everybody to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And this is a filmmakers podcast for the average layman. I don't know what that really means, but we are filmmakers who like to break apart films and try to see what they're made of. Maybe get a little better at this whole process in and of itself. Lately, what's been interesting, so I've been full-time filmmaker for the last 8.5 years. I've been a writer since elementary, and editing since, I was 25. I'm on the back half of that. So I've been editing for almost 15 years now, in one capacity or another. But in acting and, screenplays, whatever. And so I've been living and eating and breathing film for so long. And I'm starting to work on a new project, a script that I want to develop that takes place in the artist community. And it's been really interesting. So I have a new intern, Cassie, who's been amazing, and she's probably editing this right now as we speak because I'm time traveling. We're recording on a Thursday night, and I'm talking to her through time travel on probably a Monday afternoon. And so she has been amazing in scheduling all these artists, because if I want to write a film that takes place in the art community, I need to understand the art community, and I can't draw, let alone paint. Like literally my stick figures are just garbage. I'm really, really bad. I'm working on it though. I'm starting to teach myself how to sketch, and eventually I'll teach myself how to paint. But before I got into any of that, man, I wanted to talk to artists and understand the journey of an artist, from when does it begin to when do you know that this could be a living, and what are the goals and milestones you want to hit. And it's been incredible, man. I've talked to over 30, artists in multiple mediums. Like I've talked to some sculpturists, a lot of painters, some graphic designers, mostly painters though. But what I think has kind of confounded me, well, not confounded, but surprised me in a delightful way, is that there's so much overlap. And I would imagine even with your own story, like as a musician, let alone as an actor and filmmaker yourself, like there's so much overlap in our stories whenever you start thinking about the journey of any creative endeavor. And it's that largely 99% of these people started when they were kids. It was just something that they loved to do, and they never stopped doing it. I was writing as a kid. Like I'm sure in some capacity or another, you were doing music, even if you only seriously started doing it in high school. Like it was something that you really pursued. And I think the thing that has really actually surprised me is how much influence parents have had on their kids and the way they turned out. There was a handful of stories where, as someone who was, 12 years old, they would make something, and how that, something that they were proud of, and how that was responded to by the authority figures in their lives, really did make a massive impact on the next 30 years of these people's lives. Because some people were like, I was ridiculed. Like my aunt or my mom looked at my drawing or my painting, and they were like, this is terrible. This, the proportions are all wrong. This isn't real art. And something that they were just so incredibly proud of, they suddenly had a lot of shame around, and they just kind of put it down for ages, as opposed to some people, had a lot of encouragement from their parents. They were drawing, and like their teacher would be like, oh, this your kid has real talent. You should encourage this. Or maybe the parent brought art home with them. There was a lot of parents who were artists, who would just give their kids all these tools. Like one person I was talking to was like, we didn't have a lot of TV in my house, but my mom brought me like a little easel and some paints and watercolors, and that's what we did. But we went running around. Like I made sure I had my easel in hand, and I was just out painting and all the time, and it just grew. But all
That's
even
awesome.
beyond that, once you start getting into like the actual journey, the process, it was all the same stuff that I deal with. I know as a filmmaker who's trying to, make a name and make a career out of this thing. There's ups, there's downs, there's people who take advantage of you, and there's people who crap on your work. And you get to, it seemed like every artist I talked to got to this point where they literally stopped caring what anybody said about their work.
And then they probably made better work.
Made much better work.
Isn't that so funny? Because, I mean, it's a slippery slope, because you want, as an artist, you want to be recognized. Let's be honest. Like, you want to be recognized for your not necessarily even your talent, but because that's a little bit self-serving, but more for your contribution, right, to whatever art form you're in, right? And but also, it'd be nice to make a living at it, where you don't have to wake up and go do a day job that is not in your heart, right? And but people have to like it in order for that to happen. And so you start with this, I'm just gonna kind of make something, but I'm afraid to let people hear it, because it's all about like, am I good? I don't think I'm good. And you're not at the beginning. And then, but it's the ones that stop caring. You're right. It's the ones that stop caring about, what everybody thinks. And then all of a sudden their true self comes out, and it's weird. It's kind of cool. I mean, this really hits home for me right now. I knew that you were doing this project, some form of this project, whatever this was, but I didn't know what it was. So it's really interesting. But as you know, I like walked away from music for years, probably like almost 4 years. And I'm just now this year, because, well, right before COVID, I started kind of like playing with GarageBand and getting back into it. And we talked about it at length. Like, I had no agenda, absolutely zero, like no expectation for anything. I literally did not care if anybody ever heard anything that I was playing around with. And then I just reached out to a buddy that I had once at one point had sold a track to his library. And then he said that they're making another record, and do I want to submit some stuff? And I was like, okay, sure. And I gave them 4 songs, and they took 2. And they were like, do you have more? And I said, not really, but I can write more. And so I gave them 5 more, and they took 3 more out of the 5. I was like, what is going on? But I didn't, I wasn't making anything with the thought of like, I want to get these tracks sold or licensed or anything. It was just doing stuff. And it just, and I think that, like, even the greats, like, we talked about Tenet. You should, whoever's listening, you should go listen to the Tenet episode, right? Because the greats at whatever they do don't care if you get it, right? They literally, like, Jackson Pollock does not give a rat's ass if you like his painting, right? And that's part of it, right? That's part of because the other thing is that you're buying the artist too.
Yeah.
You're not just buying the art. And so you want to own a Jackson Pollock because the guy was just like all over the place. And yeah, that's very interesting. That's kind of like a theme that's running through all of your interviews, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I'm really excited because the character in my film is going to be a woman, a young woman that is, discovering her passion for art. And so I have no idea what the runtime is going to be. Originally, I just would be excited if I could write 90 pages. But the more I think about the script, I might end up with 90 pages that ends up being like a 2.5-hour movie, just because I want to give a sense of scale and a sense of time that it takes to become proficient, let alone excellent at something, at creating art. And I mean, I have still so much to learn about the process and some of the technical stuff, even just shop talk. Like, I don't know how artists speak to each other. I only know how they speak to me right now. And so there's still, just so much to kind of figure out. But even being a woman in art is very difficult. You might be surprised at the number of women that are in museums. So one of the things I learned, and I'll just give a quick overview of for me as a filmmaker, I know the path that it takes for me to get into like a movie theater. And it's not a fast one. Probably there's a few lucky people out there who, get this amazing first run at it. But my path will probably be the more prototypical of I make a short film or I make a feature film. I get into a film festival. And then after I get into a film festival, maybe I meet a producer who likes it. Maybe they buy it, maybe they don't. But maybe more importantly, I make these connections that they say, what else are you working on? We really liked your thing. And this is kind of what Nolan did. Like he went and he got the following made by himself on weekends. It took him a year. And he got that into a festival. And that's where he was able to go and network and meet producers that said, oh, what else you got? And he made Memento. And that's what obviously put him on the map. Yada, yada, yada. And so that's probably more along the lines of my path of I need to meet producers and someone who says, what else do you got? So I need to have other things in my pocket. But after that, that's when you get your real budget. Now I can get my $5 million or $10 million budget that gets me, my Memento. And then after that, they're like, oh, wow, this guy really has it. Now we can give him, I don't want to do Marvel films by any stretch, but whatever the equivalent of that might be. Now he can do his Batman Begins, and that's this really long, arduous track that is only fit for those who survive it. Like it's such a process. And so with that in mind, like for an artist, there's similar goals. There's like, okay, you really need to go to school. If you don't have an art degree, it's so much harder to be taken seriously as an artist. I don't have a film degree. I will still be taken seriously as a filmmaker based on what I can produce, because art is so much more subjective. If you don't have the training, they just aren't going to believe that you're serious about what you're doing. They're going to look at you as a hobbyist. And so in order to make it without a degree is so much harder and more challenging. And it takes so much more confidence and long suffering, so to speak. But ideally you get your degree, then you get your BA, and then you're going to get your MFA. And then you can be taken seriously as an artist.
Wow.
From there, maybe you'll get gallery representation. And this is kind of an older form of the art world. It's being remade right now with the internet and everything that's going on. But traditionally you might get gallery representation where you'll go into, maybe you'll have an exhibit, maybe you'll have shared galleries. This is where you start to build up your CV, which is a big deal in the art world. And then after a very, very long time, and then you die, you might get into a museum. The art museums is where the legends are.
And then you die.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's very few living artists who get exhibits, permanent exhibits in art museums, from what I understand. And again, take this all with a grain of salt, because I'm just a researcher at this point, learning the ropes based on bad conversations that I'm having on my part, not on the part of the artist. And so I'm trying to understand. And so art exhibits in museums are just the pinnacle. This is who's who. And so of those, the amount of representation on the high end, I've heard that as many as 11% of those works are women. That's like this pretty high estimation. A more serious estimation that I've heard from the Artists Women Association, and I might be bastardizing it, it's the AWA. They put it at 3%. And if you go back, let's say more than 5 years, 3 or 4 years, the number that was usually thrown around was about 5%. That's probably a high estimate. And so it's pretty reasonable to think 3 to 5% of these exhibits are of women. And of course, historically, throughout history, right, men made the rules. Men were taken seriously as artists because they had the money, they could do what they want, and the training, and yada yada yada. But that still hasn't even changed much in the last century. Let's be generous here and say the last century of women being taken seriously as artists, and that still hasn't shifted much. And even today, I mean, you think about the rungs, on the bottom rungs, there's all the hobbyists, so to speak, or the people who are just creating art that aren't in, galleries and aren't taken seriously by the art world. That's mostly comprised of women. And then the higher up you go, the fewer women there are. It's just so tightly held, by the men in the industry. And I'm not judging. I don't know why that is exactly. I would hesitate to make, any real guesses at it. I don't want to ascribe evil to an industry that I don't know. So that's not a judgment I'm going to sit here and pass. But regardless, it does point out a significant challenge for women who are artists. And so I have to take that into account when I'm writing my script. And I certainly plan to, and try to do it, justice without. That's not going to be the point of my film, unfortunately. But it would be remiss if I didn't include that in some shape or form. So it's been incredibly enlightening, and I'm having such a great time interviewing these people. And several of them I'm going to circle back with, and talk to again. And yeah, I feel like I'm meeting just a ton of kindred spirits.
So how many people have you interviewed?
So right now I'm a little over 30. I want to say like 31. And I just have heaps and heaps of notes. It's been incredible. I've talked to one person who was coming up in New York in the 70s and 80s and 90s, in the art scene, which is a crazy time. I mean, that's like Andy Warhol and Basquiat, and this guy knew those people. Like, he was in shows with Basquiat. So that's kind of just a mind-blowing thing if you're even remotely familiar with the art world. Those are very household names. And so, yeah, the incredible conversations, and some of them heartbreaking, and some of them incredibly encouraging. I met one person who is a lot like me. Like, she has just a ton of hustle. Like, it's all grit and gristle with her, man. She is just absolutely killing it. She didn't have a formal education in art, but she's doing it anyway, and she's creating really good art. Like, I really like her work. It's abstract, and she was like, these gallery owners, none of them respond to me. She emails thousands of people every week, like, between just trying to
every week.
Businesses. Every week, she's emailing thousands of people, just to see if she can make any connections. Like, hey, do you want to collaborate on a thing? Or hey, there's all these galleries. Let me email them and see if they'll look at my work and give me an opportunity to show my work. Like, thousands, serious hustle. She was like, I almost never get a response from galleries, let alone a rejection. Like, they don't even take the time to reject me. So she was like, you know what? I'm going to throw in my own show. And so she rented her own space, hired her own DJ, her own bartender, and she just threw her own freaking show. Invited all her friends, invited everyone she could think of, other gallerists. And so she's killing it. Like, I got a lot of inspiration just from talking to her.
Man, that sounds incredible.
Yeah. And I was able to pass her information based on other conversations I was having. I was like, yeah, it sounds like these other things are, things that artists do. She's like, oh, they are? Oh, well, this is what I'm going to be doing this week. It's so,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I respect that game, man. It's so freaking cool.
Man. That makes me actually want to go to work.
Right? Doesn't it? Doesn't that just get you
makes
jazzed?
me want to do stuff. Yeah.
And with that in mind, what are we going to be doing today?
Oh, so today we are covering Shaun of the Dead. So if you have not seen Shaun of the Dead, pause this episode because we will be giving spoilers galore.
Heck to the yeah. We're going to talk about a few things, all kind of centered around comedy. We'll touch on some of the cinematography and revealing comedy through cinematography. We'll talk about editing, comedic editing, and all of the humor, apocalyptic humor, and everything, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
Okay, so a quick synopsis. A man's uneventful life is disrupted by the zombie apocalypse. Directed by Edgar Wright, written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, cinematography by David M. Dunlap, starring Simon Pegg as Shaun, Nick Frost as Ed, Kate Ashfield as Liz, and Bill Nighy as Philip.
Bill Nye?
Bill Nye? Why is there a T? There's not a T. Why did I add a T in there? Kate Ashfield as Liz. Kate Ashfield as Liz and I can't. Oh my god.
No, you're crushing this.
This
Stick the landing.
yeah, this is gonna be a good edit for you. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh. Starring Simon Pegg as Shaun, Nick Frost as Ed, Kate Ashfield as Liz, and Bill Nighy as Philip.
Right, that's all. Shake out, get nice and limber. Or not. Now, take another look at the way he moves. Remember, very limp. Almost like sleepwalking. Look at the face. It's vacant, with a hint of sadness. Like a drunk who's lost a bet. Okay, let's try, shall we? Liz. Nice, good vocal work. Okay. Barbara, that's excellent.
Sorry, dear, I was miles away.
Daphs? Come on. Okay, it's mournful, sorrowful, you dead and you hate it. Go. Much better. Ed.
I'll do it on the night.
This is the night.
What is that?
What about yours?
Hey?
Who died and made you fucking king of the zombies?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay. Right, let's all try it together, shall we? 1, 2, 3.
One of the things I love about that scene so much. So I was an extra on what was it? The Grindhouse movie Planet of Terror. This is Robert Rodriguez's. Him and Tarantino teamed up to do their double feature exploitation 70s bit. And Planet of Terror was about the zombie apocalypse and yada yada yada. And being on set and dealing with the extras handler, basically we're like cattle on set, man. Being an extra is the worst. But they're like, hey, we're gonna work through how to be a zombie, and they, similar to her, like it was very like, let's just discuss what not to do. What you're not gonna do, what nobody on this effing set is gonna do, is drag their foot like a moron. Like that's cliche. That's not what we're doing. Like instead, you're a little erratic. You're gonna stumble around. And you're going to gaze off and she would have us all do it, in batches of like 5 or so and give us notes and like, okay, good. Yeah, fine. Just don't be an idiot. Like, and so I love her just, trying to get everyone to commit to being the zombie. Yeah. So what did you think? I mean, how many times have you seen this, do you think?
At least 3.
Yeah.
At least 3. If not, this might have been the 4th.
Yeah,
I loved it. It's great. It's fun. It's a cool play. When this came out, there were so many zombie movies, and I remember this time because I remember even talking to you about it, thinking I'm so done with zombies, like it's so overdone. But this is really refreshing. It's kind of refreshing to go back to the zombie time when all these zombie movies were coming out and actually watch a fun one. That's kind of smart because they address all the tropes, pretty much, and call them out for what they are. And I do like, I love how they did because every zombie movie, the zombies are different. You have the zombie in the style of 28 Days Later, where they're just crazy, and then you have this, which is the polar opposite, where they barely move. Like I love the first shot the day after everybody starts becoming zombies, right? Where he's just stumbling out to the store, and when it's all a one shot, a oneer,
Mm-hmm.
when he comes out of the house and then goes to the store and then comes back. The whole thing is one shot. Well, when he's walking into the store, you see this woman, zombie trudging down, whatever. And then he's in the store for, I don't know, 45 seconds, a minute. And then he just walks out right past her, and she's not even to the door yet, So they're so slow, which allows a lot of comedic timing to happen, and then it also makes it like a much bigger deal if they actually catch you, because, you could literally never get caught,
Right.
you know, unless they catch you sleeping, you know, you're fine. All you gotta do is push them out of the way. They're not strong. And they're not, you know, like that. It's not that big of a deal, you know? So, but because of that, like, so when they first get to the Winchester and they can't get in and they're being surrounded by the zombies, you know, and Ed gets a phone call and then they have he has an argument with Shaun, and all this is happening when they're like 4 feet away from him.
Right.
The zombies are like 4 feet away from him. And then, you know, in order for Shaun to lead them away, he goes through them. He just walks right through the group, right?
That's right.
It's like that would never happen in any other zombie movie, but with this, they're so dilapidated.
That's such a good point, like, because this is very classic Romero zombie rules, right? They're slow, they're dumb. Same basic, you got to get bit before you turn. You got to destroy the head or damage the brain. And this came in after 28 Days Later, so it would have been easy to, like, oh, let's do the fast zombie thing. But he stuck with the classics, and you're absolutely right, man. That is such an easy, because he can change the speed based on the necessity of the story.
Yeah.
Based on what the scene calls for. They're just extra slow right now than later whenever they grab whatever David. So great. Yeah, I love that point.
Yeah, and that is a good point too, that he can change the speed, because it's never really established. I think that if you establish the fastest you ever establish a zombie, that's how fast that they go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you're stuck to that. So like 20 Days Later, they are always going to be that pace. You're never going to have a slow one.
That's right.
You can't, like, and it slows down the pace of the film, let's be honest. Yeah. Right. And the stress level. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and in this movie, because it's a comedy, we don't want there to be stress unless we want there to be stress. Like, for example, when the boyfriend, the annoying as shit guy, gets torn apart, right? That's stressful. And all of a sudden, the zombies are all very strong and fast enough to pull him out of the window, at least, you know? So, and then they're fast enough to get around the bar, and then they're fast enough to tear open the hole, or the cellar door. Right?
Yeah.
They couldn't even get through glass for a couple of hours. Right. But then at the end, they're tearing through a cellar door. We don't care. No. It doesn't matter. We can establish them as, like, at that point, we could have established them as the 28 Days Later speed zombies, and it would have been fine because it's the end of it.
Yeah.
Right?
You can ramp up. That's such a fantastic point. You can ramp up, but you can never ramp down.
Yeah.
And I do love that moment where he gets ripped out, because just before then, we really have our very first encounter of horror, which is the genuine horror of losing his mom, right? She's like convulsing as she's dying. And Shaun...
He's crying.
Yeah, he's crying. He can't let go of his mom. And then we have our first real zombie kill, which is him blowing the brains out of his mom. Like, and it feels perfect, because this feels like the loss of his innocence. Losing your mom is like the first, there's this kind of old adage, you're not really an adult until you lose your parents. I don't subscribe to that personally.
I think I do.
Do you? I mean, I don't think
I still feel like a baby.
Yeah, that's fair. And so, but the first headshot of the film really starts raising the stakes of the horror, because it's right after that David gets pulled out the window, and they like eviscerate him, like they're pulling out his guts. And it's after that, to your point, like, that's also after the zombies start ripping up the floorboards. We're okay with that, because we've kind of held back all these this level of drama and this level of tension until it served the story right at the end. And so, it's a really good point about, like, holding it back until it suits the moment.
Yeah, and it adds more stress too, because they're trapped down there. And they're talking about them breaking in, and like, this is the end, and this is going to be it. So we're expecting that to happen, them to be strong enough now. And then once they do start ripping it up, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually stressed now. I've been like, kind of like, okay, just hole up in here. There's glass. It'll hold them back, obviously.
Right.
But then, it just ramps up. So anyway, I really like the movie a lot. I love those like quick zoom edit cut things that they do a lot. I think they do them a lot in like Train Spotting and other British films and stuff.
Huh.
You know,
That's interesting. I hadn't even considered that, because I think he does it so much and so perfectly that to me it's become Edgar Wright. Like whenever I watch one of his films, I anticipate these moments of these kind of quick
100%.
zoom edits, and he, cinematography wise, like he's very constantly moving the camera around, whether it's like a tilt up or a dolly in or just panning around. A lot of these slow zoom ins on the realizations or these dramatic buildups, even the transitions. Like he might hard cut from one section to the next, and he's going to begin that next shot with like a wipe in or a tilt down or a zoom in and cut. Like he's always looking for camera movement around the cut, whether that's before or after. He's always trying to create, this very dramatic, fun kind of appeal. And in that way, you don't take the movie too serious. Like all those quick cuts, to create a sense of passage of time when they're in the bar towards the beginning after the breakup. Like they're talking and then just quick cuts on them drinking and pouring shots. And suddenly, instead of like a time lapse or a dissolve, that's how he decided to pass time, was through quick cuts, which is pretty funny. And I think that it also makes sense in terms of drinking. If we want to isolate just that scene, that's how a night feels whenever you're drinking a lot. It does feel like just drink after drink after drink. And hasn't it been 5 seconds? Oh no, it's been 3 hours. Okay. That's kind of the way that goes.
But that mixed with audio editing, like good sound design, those quick cuts with good sound design is how you pull that off for sure.
Freaking key. Yeah, you got to have both of those things. And the other thing with those quick edit zooms, that I really, really love that he's doing, it builds drama on these meaningless details. And so it's really funny because I think it's kind of an ironic use of the Hitchcock rule, which is, the bigger something is in the frame, the more important it is. Except what Edgar Wright is doing is he's creating these very meaningless like moments on orange juice, toast, bacon, or eggs. And these are just very common, ordinary things. And so they're not important at all, but we're giving it all this weight in the lens and doing it very, very quickly. And so it's kind of violating the Hitchcock rule, which we don't, maybe as a general audience member, you may not understand that it's violating, but there's this inherent understanding as an audience member. If we're seeing something close up, it's important. And so being forced to look at these really unimportant things in close-up detail and these really weird, quirky edits makes it really funny. But what I also think is cool about that is it also shows us what counts for excitement in Shaun's life. Because to Shaun, this is kind of this is his breakfast. It's very dull. It's very boring. And it isn't exciting. And it kind of underscores the problem with Shaun that Liz is, upset and fed up with, is that it's not exciting. Every day is going to be the exact same. And if that doesn't excite you, then this is not the relationship she needs to be in.
Well, I would not argue, but I totally agree with the whole big as the frame thing. But like him doing that, maybe it doesn't violate the rule just because really what's in focus and what the main subject is the breakfast, the general idea. So it's not the orange juice. It's not just the toast. It's not just the bacon. It's all of it because it happens so fast that your brain doesn't register, oh, orange juice and now bacon, and it registers breakfast, right? And so like by doing these quick cuts, at least my brain is slow enough to to register like, wait, what just happened? Oh, breakfast just happened. Okay, cool. But I don't really even get that until it's done. And I'm like, oh yeah, right.
No, that's a fair point, because the number one key to time to comedy is timing. Like any joke, the punchline and the timing is what's going to get the funny out of someone. That the laugh is going to come from the timing of the punchline. It's not necessarily the words, though sometimes it can just be the words. But timing has such a profound effect on comedy and the response to it, that the editing is creating this sense of timing. And I think you're right. Like, you're not really registering what you're seeing until after it's over. And then like the surprise is hitting you. Because I think what underlines a lot of comedy is surprise, is the shock. And I think that's how humans deal with shock in meaningless ways. Meaningless shock is where funny is going to come from. And so like if someone jumps out and scares you, right, there is this fear, but then there's also this alleviation after realizing, oh, everything's fine. Ha ha ha. And it's just all the compounding of these things in a very compressed amount of time that creates this hilarity, this, comedy response from us innately. I don't know that every single animal has comedy, but a lot do. And a lot of it does still come from surprise. Like you can surprise a monkey by a card trick or pulling a coin out from behind their ear. Like you can still surprise these animals and make them laugh in their own specific way. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think there is definitely more to it than just, the Hitchcock rule. And a lot of this movie certainly is compounded because even him leaving the house, right? It's the door, the key, the lock, the swinging open. Like it's very boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, well, I didn't see that coming. Like I thought it was just going to get up and go. And now it's just like, it became this whole dramatic event out of nowhere. Like it's just, it's fucking funny.
So good. So good.
And I do love those one-ers because I feel like there's a lot of long takes, but really two very good one-ers, and they're the same thing. It's him leaving the house, going to the store, grabbing whatever, his breakfast, his treats, and then walking home, right? And so the first one, everything's fine, and the second one is after the apocalypse has begun, and he just doesn't notice it. And in both of them, he's equally as clueless and not paying attention, right? He almost gets hit by a car, and there's a guy asking for money, and so he's kind of treating the world in this very blind fashion because he's just kind of walking blindly through his life, and it's perfectly emblematic of his issue once again. And I think a lot of the humor of the film kind of comes through the idea of a lot of inappropriate responses to horrible situations. Like they find out, fine, okay, we finally realize there's zombies, and they just pick the most ineffective weapons they could possibly come up with.
I mean, records. Like, really?
They throw a pillow at one point. Like,
why not?
It's just terrible.
Why not?
Why not? Let's see if this works. And even just the clip that we played at the beginning, imitating zombies to get past them, that's a very bad idea. And the stakes are way too high to be doing this dumb idea. And it's funny that it works. Like that really is a really good, and they're just acting, right? Because it's also one of those things that we probably have thought of before Shaun of the Dead. I'm sure we thought of, couldn't you just act like a zombie and get by them? And so it kind of plays out this very fundamental idea of, can you fake zombies out by just acting like one of them? Probably. And going once again on the inappropriate responses, he's talking to his mom, right? Mom, have you been bitten? No, but Phil has. Oh, okay. And then Ed walks up. He's like, is Barbara okay? Has she been bitten? And he's like, no, but Philip has. Oh, okay. Like, they both are relieved and don't care about Philip. And there's so many of these great unexpected zombie apocalyptic moments. Like the whole, what if we're so used to following one group of survivors throughout a film of zombies that we don't usually get the satisfaction of, what if there are other groups out there like you? And so they run into their survival reflections, right?
Oh, I love that.
And they all have their own iteration of the group. And I love seeing just that quick juxtaposition of them passing each other and kind of nodding and having their one-liner.
So good.
It's so freaking good. I love the mom finding the flowers like in the dumped out trash. I think they're for me.
I think they're for me. Oh, you love her so much. Oh, she's so wonderful.
She really is. She's adorable. Even that scene in the kitchen, right, where he's trying to figure out a reason that we can kill Philip without breaking his mom's heart. And he's like, he touched me. No, he didn't. That was a terrible lie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was not good.
Those over the top. Oh, so good. This is classic Edgar Wright at this point, looking back throughout his career. he finds these really funny small scale humor moments, right? And especially in a big scale problem of zombies. And we just sit there and watch Shaun climb up the steps of a children's slide. And we just sit there and we watch the slide. And it's just tick, 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 tick. Tick, 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 tick. Like we have to sit there for like 45 seconds watching him take these 4-inch steps. Like it's so bloody brilliant.
Camera doesn't move.
Doesn't
Camera's
move an
still.
inch. It's within the frame. Oh, genius. I mean, and even on that same idea with, camera movement playing into the comedy, I love the reveals. Like you can do a lot of comedy through editing and through revealing, like on the opening scene before there's any zombies at all, right? We're hearing Liz talk about how much she hates Ed. And she's like, it's not that I don't like Ed. It's not that I don't like you, Ed. And then you reveal that Ed is right there listening. And then you go through him talking about how he hates her friends. And it's like, it's not that I don't like you. And we reveal through an edit that her friends are right there listening. No, it's okay. We understand. It's just this very great revealing humor is very underutilized, I think, in a lot of comedies. Even whenever he's looking out and this is, through the cinematography, he's looking out the mail slot and he's not seeing any zombies. And it's like, maybe it's not all that bad. Oh, wait, nope, there they are. And then we just pan over to reveal just off to the side, there's all these zombies. And it's just humor through filling the frame before it was empty. Like, it's silly. And we don't expect the silliness in these really horrible situations. So that kind of juxtaposition is constantly popping up because instead of usually zombies give us like the hardcore, the action guy, right? The clever person, the ninjas. But what if instead of the best people to survive the apocalypse, what if we instead have the biggest idiots? And so we're constantly laughing at this dramatic irony of their close brushes with death, right? The zombie woman is attacking them and they're sitting there taking pictures with her. And they don't know, they have no idea. And they're also like singing on the street, right? And they're doing this call and response to the zombie, not knowing. And so there's a little bit of dramatic irony in here. They don't rely heavily on it though. They kind of get in and out of that pretty quick. And instead, once they do know, they're still making the worst decisions possible. Let's go to a public space with these really big breakable windows and call that a safe space. Like, this is a terrible idea.
So bad. And I love that at the end, he runs into that same girl that's like his double, I guess. I guess it's an ex-girlfriend of his.
Maybe so. That would make sense.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And she's like, is this all that's left? Because she obviously got everybody
right.
Everybody was safe, right?
She got all her people out.
Yeah, she got all her people out. Oh man.
Oh, that's right. And it's so good because she did get to see all the people that he was in charge of.
Yep.
And so Shaun was just a terrible leader.
It's so bad.
I
so bad.
I love that, the whole section with Queen playing and the lights flicking on and off, and they turn like the zombies into like this music video. It's like a bad zombie music video where they're supposed to be hiding instead, like they're just sending out these signal flares of, hey, here we are. It's so bad. But also it goes into the best laid plans, right? I love the iterations of tell us what they're going to do, lay out the plan and how simple it's going to be, right? We're going to go to mom, we're going to kill her boyfriend, we're going to rescue Liz, and then we're going to hole up in Winchester. Yeah, boy, ding. And they go through several versions of that. And then none of the plan goes to reality. And this goes into, you can't show us what you're going to do and then execute it perfectly. Like things have to go badly. And like he goes to his mom's, he can't kill Ed. And then like they don't even have the car. His buddy wrecks his car. Like everything is going wrong. And in fact, Ed doesn't even get out of the car. He's not even trying to help Shaun. And all along the path, like things just keep going badly. And that is just the perfect, you can't see the same thing happen twice, rule in its essence. But yeah, I mean, I really didn't have many notes. I kind of just kept watching. I think I also
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just enjoyed it. Like I did have to adjust though. I would say 20 minutes in, I was like, man, I thought this was funnier. And then I realized I came in here with the wrong expectations. Like I built this movie up too much instead of just letting this be
Oh no!
what it is.
Instead of just watching it.
Yeah. And then once I kind of relaxed back into it, I really enjoyed the hell out of it because it's funny, but it's not like pee your pants, funny. It's just a really fun movie that's making light of the zombie apocalypse. I wouldn't say it necessarily makes fun of zombies so much as it makes the situation lighthearted where it should be really, really serious. Because these are serious zombies. There's nothing about the zombies that they're never not serious. Like, they could end your life. These zombies aren't like playing into the gags. They're playing their part the whole time. There's other zombie films where zombies don't necessarily act like zombies the whole time. Maybe they'll, wink or do something silly, but that's never the case here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they show you that when they rip the guy apart.
Yeah, that's right. Brutally.
And that needed to happen. You had to have some kind of stress.
Yeah.
In a zombie movie, even if it's funny, you got to have some kind of, how are they going to get out of this? Put them in a situation that you can't imagine how they would get out. Like that, it's got to happen.
Yep. It's perfect. Yeah. And he set it up. It never felt cheap to me that, she comes in with the team, because her game plan all along was, let's do the smart thing. And I forget where she says that she's on her way to. It probably was something like the police or something, but
Yeah.
And I love how much judgment she has. And when she's like, where are you going? The Winchester.
Oh, okay. And the look on his face when she asked if this was all that was left at the end was just like so depleted.
It's all shame.
But it was a wonderful. It was a little wonderful that he had Ed as a pet at the end.
Yeah.
Because you just love Ed, right? How can you not? Oh, man.
I will say, I was surprised when I was putting together the show notes that this was written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. And so I'm pretty sure Simon Pegg got first credit. Normally, first credit is the person who does the bulk of the writing. And so in the credits, although that might be alphabetical, I would have to check the movie listing. But regardless, I thought this was entirely Edgar Wright's baby. But I guess this was him and his old buddies just kind of coming together and saying, hey, because he made Space, which was a British, I think it was BBC, comedy show for like a season with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and they all worked on that together. But what I love, but this was his breakout film. This was, to me, I'm sure he did like TV movies or something, but this was the first movie that, put him on the map. And it was a smart decision. Like, I'm sure he could have written Hot Fuzz and some of his other, World's End. Probably not Scott Pilgrim. He would have needed the budget for that. But he could have made some of these other films. But he made this one first. And as a filmmaker, I'm trying to look at his career and take notes. And he picked a zombie comedy that's pretty accessible. Not to say it's necessarily easy. Not necessarily easy to make and easy to get people to pay attention to, but a lot easier than trying to come up with your own comedy. That this has such low-hanging fruit that hadn't really been explored to this point. And he said, what can I do that's going to get noticed, that I can get some funding for, and will be easy to execute? And he picked a hell of a movie. He got great actors, wrote a hell of a script, made it pretty tight. I mean, this is an hour 40 minutes with credits. And I mean, it's execution. A lot of it came into execution. Let's write a few funny jokes. I don't think, like I said, this isn't like wet yourself funny, but the characters in there are very, very good. Like, you love Shaun, you love Ed, even though you kind of hate Ed and you realize that this guy's a jackass. He's doing everything wrong. But at the same time, you just adore him. You're like, he's a jackass, but he's a lovable jackass. I think we all have some of those people in our lives.
I don't know what you're talking about. Not every member of my family. Yeah, one of the things, and I think we talked about this, I don't know if we talked about it on air last week or if we just talked about it afterwards, but it's also there's a difference between a creator and a publisher, right? You can have an artist who creates a bunch of stuff but doesn't put it out there, or somebody who just never finishes anything because it's not good enough, right? And or you could have somebody who just makes a shit ton of stuff and puts it all out there, because if you and usually those people that just do a lot are the ones that are successful. And it's interesting because, you and I, we sit back and we're like, we want to make something. We want to make it perfect. Like, we want to make it like, so I can put my name on it and be proud of it. But 90% of people don't know the difference between our 80% and our 100%. They just know if it relates to them or not. Right. And so it does, somebody who is 80% our talent could do something at 100%, and it would be the equivalent of us, spending, 100 less hours on a project, and just putting it out. Right. And so really, I think that we should take a lesson from, because I'm sure that Edgar Wright would have liked to have done something with a little bit more sustenance and meat, maybe for his first film. But in order to get the attention, just like all of these artists that you've been interviewing, to get what will get attention? Zombies right now are huge. And comedy. I've got Simon Pegg in my pocket, and Nick Frost. Thank you, in my pocket, and they're excellent together. We're just gonna do this. Let's do this. Oh, you have a screenplay that you've been working on, Simon? Yeah, let's work on that together. Let's make that. That will be accessible, and that leads to something else. Leads to something else. Leads to what I really want to do. So it's just really interesting. The interviews you're doing, his first film, me like learning that like most creators that are successful are actual producers. They actually produce a lot of content or a lot of whatever it is that they produce, art, songs, whatever, films. Just makes me think, just do it. Like, okay, what do you think will get the most eyes right now? At one point it was vampires, okay, let's make a vampire movie. Let's just do it. Like, I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but let's just do it. Let's put something out. Let's put a cool spin on it. Right? Because really all it is like, we're taking something that's boring because it's been done 100 times and we're making it fresh in one tiny little way. And that one tiny little way is what you're bringing to that, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, like that's just crazy that, yeah, you're right, that he picked this kind of genre to go down for. It's insane.
It's smart. I mean, I think everything you said is dead on. Just to analyze and say, what could possibly put me on the radar? And fine, I won't be the most original human being on the block, but I can put my own spin on a popular whatever genre, and just make it my own. Like, what does this mean to me? What do I want to see that I haven't seen before? Let's do that.
Like, I'll bet you're so good at writing. I'll bet you could take something that has been done 100 times and like a type of comedy and make it dramatic. Right? Like, you could totally do that. You're a really good dramatic writer. Like, that would be interesting. It might not be the meatiest thing for you to create, but for me as a view, like, I would like to see that. I would run to a theater to see that kind of thing. It's a different way of looking at creating something. I mean, I'm saying this for myself too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of music I don't want to make, but I need to start making it. Double down on your weaknesses, not your strengths, right? Let's balance yourself out.
That's so fascinating. I hadn't even thought of trying to look at comedy tropes and seeing how to dramatize them. That's really fascinating. I mean, because I was just even watching this movie, I was debating, what to put as my recommendation for the week. And I was like, oh, you know what? This movie is kinda, but not really. It's getting right into the bromance category. And I was thinking about recommending I Love You Man, because they all they did was take a romance and make it a comedy by just making two guys who are, quote unquote, falling in love, and they inserted every single romantic trope that they possibly could cram into that movie. And they were just like, yeah, it's not a romance, but it has all the hallmarks of a romance. It's just buddies.
Yeah.
It's just two guys falling in love as friends. Like, it is really, but reverse engineering, or at least thinking of the opposite of that. Let's take something that is comedic and or whatever. Like, it could be. I get what you mean. Like, there's so many genres and styles and subgenres to play with. Like, why not take I have no idea, a heist film and make it into whatever, a zombie film. I don't know, but yeah, no, that's a really interesting concept. And I like genre collapsing anyway. A lot of the films I work in, that I'm working on, I try to think of how to combine genres in unobvious ways. Like, I've often wondered, like, courtroom dramas aren't as popular as they used to be. We used to have a lot of, A Few Good Men's and whatever, those kinds of films, and Runaway Jury and tons. And they just kind of fallen out of popularity. And I've always wondered, like, what would a courtroom drama look like if it was set in, like, the streets? Like, let's take some of these same elements of, there was a crime, and now, there's evidence presented, and there's someone who's innocent that needs to have someone represent them. And you could take these elements of a courtroom drama and use that, categorically and strategically in another setting, whether that's, kind of an inner street, setting, or, wherever. I mean, this could take place technically anywhere, but there's certain genres that I also like. I like, inner city films and urban settings. And so there's interesting ways to combine and collapse genres in ways that would make them fresh again. Yeah. Anyway, good
Definitely.
idea, man. Yeah.
Yep.
So, last comments, or are you going to throw out what your recommendation of the week is?
Last comments, I really like this movie a lot. It's so much fun. I completely recommend it to anybody. Go watch it and enjoy it. I mean, I could watch it again right now and enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's just
I
really...
technically did while the show has been going on. I've had it in the background.
Oh yeah, you've been watching it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my reco, I'm gonna recommend, just because we'll stay on the scary train because it's October. I'm gonna recommend Get Out. It's really, everybody screaming about that film, and I went and saw it, and it was one of those films where it was like, wow, that wasn't what I was expecting. And then as time has gone on, I've digested it a little bit more. I'm like, I just like it more, and kind of want to watch it again to see how I feel about it now. Because it's not just a scary film. Like, there's so many other hidden, like, themes woven in there. And it's definitely a heady film where you wouldn't expect it to be. So, yeah.
Very nicely done. I am also going to stick with the horror theme. And I randomly hit play on this movie that had Kiersey Clemons in it, because I really liked her after watching Dope the first time ages ago. Every time I see a movie with her in it, I'm probably going to hit play. Like, I saw Heartbeats Loud a while back, and I really enjoyed it. It's a sweet little film. And I recommended that ages ago. And so I hit play on this creature feature called Sweetheart. It's streaming on Netflix right now. And it's simple. It's like an 80-minute film. You're in, you're out. And she's very compelling to watch. And I don't see a lot of creature features anymore. Like, most films, I feel like, in the horror genre right now are very ghost-like, and there's some kind of apparition or big power or something. And it's fine. I'm not saying they're bad or whatever, but I like a good creature feature. And so this one took me by surprise. I was just kind of watching it, and I'm like, what is this animal, kind of thing. And I would say, if you hit play and just don't walk in with massive expectations, it's probably $1 million film. So go in with very, very small expectations, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's similar to Get Out. It's a Blumhouse production. Blumhouse is pretty well known for their horror films.
They do it well.
Yeah, Izzy had me watching The Invisible Man a few weeks ago. Another
Is that a
Blumhouse.
Blumhouse film?
Yeah.
Is it good? Well, I guess you're not allowed to tell me.
Technically not, but I would say you won't be wasting your time if you watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because that's interesting because it's such a.
It looks like a paint by numbers film,
It really does.
and it's not.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Done. Yeah, so you got two
Noted.
for the price of one.
Noted. Okay. Cool. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Nice. So stay tuned. Next week we jump out of the comedy genre of the month for horror, and instead we dive into World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, baby.
That's high octane comedy, or not at all. So yeah, tune in. We'll be covering that. Very excited. I've been wanting to do that for ages, and I know you have too. I've been kind of saving it because once we've covered it, it's over. So,
We have been talking about maybe doing that for a while.
yeah, super excited. And I will tell you about my experience of being in the same room with Brad Pitt. It's very humbling, and it's not something I want any man to ever go through.
You'll tell us that next week?
I will tell you that next week. Don't let me
Oh
forget.
man, I cannot wait. I didn't know that was an experience you've had.
It's brutal.
So sorry. So sorry.
Subscribe, review us on iTunes. Leave us a note if there's something you want us to talk about that's not Brad Pitt related. Please do so. If you want to comment on this episode, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/Shaun of the Dead.
So the quote of the day we'll leave you with is from George Romero. If I fail, the film industry writes me off as another statistic. If I succeed, they pay me $1 million to fly out to Hollywood and fart.
He's not a man of complex words.
No, he just kind of
He just lays it out there. I mean, and
puts them in there.
You get what he's saying, right? Obviously, that it almost doesn't matter what you make next. If you make a successful film that makes money, that then suddenly they care about you and they'll let you make something else. And even if it's bad, they'll as long as it makes money, that's all that matters. I mean, we certainly covered some stinkers in the past, but they made money, and so they're going to make sequels. But I love to me, the more important part is the first sentence, right? If I fail, I'm just a statistic. They don't really care. But if I succeed, the risk reward isn't as big as you think. And I found we're going to have a lot of Romero quotes because this guy had amazing insights and thoughts. So be prepared. We'll have another one next week.
Okay. All right. Cool.
But I love just that kind of freedom of, if you fail, you're just written off as another statistic. You're just one in a million. Of course you failed. Why wouldn't you have failed? But if you succeed, that's where why not? So it just kind of gives me this freedom of just fucking go for it. If you fail, no one really cares.
Yeah.
The upside is you might get paid to make stuff that you love. And that's incredible to me.
Yeah, I mean, why worry about the shots you didn't take?
Yeah.
Michael Jordan.
So good.
There you go. Anyway, this has been great, man. I really enjoyed this episode. Thank you guys for joining us and for listening and maybe watching if you're on YouTube. Like I said, please make sure to review us on iTunes, share us with your friends, all that stuff, and let us know what you would like us to cover. If there's a film or heck, even a TV show, please don't make it eight seasons, whatever. Just make a suggestion and maybe we'll do it. We'll probably do it. Until next week, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies. Pew pew. Shooter.